Wow. There are so many things happening politically in Humboldt County. It's hard to keep track of them all. Being a responsible citizen and participating in democracy means more than just voting, but the system is so complex. It's hard enough to keep track of everything that is happening, let alone understanding how the process works and how to have my voice heard. I need some clarity. I need to talk to somebody to help me wrap my head around some things.
So, what's new? You up to anything exciting this week?
Yeah, actually, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the wind power project that's happening in Terra-Gen, Bear River and Monument Ridges. You've been hearing about this, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, you know. We really need to start shifting to alternative energy.
Yeah, that's true. That is undeniable. I will give you that. But I'm not entirely sure that this is the way to do it.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess, and from what I've heard, this, in theory, could provide renewable energy to 40,000 homes, which sounds great, right? I mean, that's a start. We absolutely have to stop using fossil fuels, yeah. But, you know, it won't stay in the area necessarily.
So it won't help if we lose power again.
No.
PG&E's.
No, I don't believe so, because it's still tied to the grid, right? So it still would go out into the larger world. So yeah, it wouldn't necessarily stay here. It's not going to give us energy independence or anything like that. But you know, that's not a big deal, right? I would be fine with providing clean energy to other people too, right? As long as we're transitioning out of fossil fuels. But I think that it's really the environmental impacts of it, and just all of it. There are a lot of other issues with the project that I think kind of cancel out some of the benefits.
Interesting, like what?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, to tie it to the grid, there are going to have to be about 25 miles of clear cuts, about 80 to 100 feet wide. You know, like you've been out in the woods before and walked a power line, right? You think about that. You know, they had to go in and cut down all of those trees before they could put those power lines in, right?
Yeah, that seems
so
like
you're cutting down all the
habitat.
A lot of habitat, right? A lot of things live in those trees, right? And you know what? I think that is the main thing that's giving me trouble, is that this could be good for humans. It could be good for some humans in the short term, but thinking about if we really need to, if we're trying to change the way that we get our energy, we need to be thinking about more than just ourselves right in this moment, right? And there's so many possible impacts to birds, right? Of course, we all kind of know about that. And that is something that the right wing used as an excuse against renewable energy previously, but they're like legitimate concerns.
Well, we have a lot of birds in this area.
We have so many birds in this area. And I read in the final environmental impact report, which by the way is so dense and complex and hard to read, that I think that a lot of people don't actually get into it. So luckily there was, at a planning commission meeting, city or county staff that broke it down. But it's estimated that 150 to 300 birds could be killed per year through the life of the project. But that's not considered significant because they're common birds. Right?
That's a terrible.
Right? Isn't that how things become uncommon? Is that we kill them? But then also the.
But what about all that? Like, we can have a lot of birds that are, I feel like, protected birds that travel through this area.
Right. That's very true. And the way that the law works is that you can mitigate for that. So there are things that you can change in your project to make it slightly better for those species. Or in some cases, you can get what they call an incidental take permit.
What does that mean?
So you get that from the Department of Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife. You basically get a permit to kill protected species if you're doing it in the process of an activity that is not illegal. Say, harvesting a resource like wind to make energy. So you can get a permit to kill a certain amount of birds of prey specifically.
Well, like a bald eagle.
Like a bald eagle. Right, so you basically get a permit to do that as long as you're doing that in the process of something that is not illegal. So you can do that. And that was another interesting thing that I learned from the environmental impact report, is that they don't, because I knew that birds of prey were going to be at risk for this. And so I tried to search the document for things like eagle mortality or, death of avian species, but they use different terminology for it. And at one point in the EIR, they say that, it is estimated that, that the mitigations will be in effect to handle individual birds that are that are accidentally removed from the population, I believe is the way that they phrase it. Accidentally removed from the population. Yeah, killed. Which is really, and I have to say that this whole process, because this is such a controversial project, I've really learned a lot about how all of this works, right? Just
you mean the process of the
process. Yeah, how somebody goes about getting the permits to do something like this, right? And it is harvesting a resource. This is a resource that we have here, right? But going back to the birds, the Yurok tribe is planning on releasing condors.
Oh, yes.
And this is the exact sort of area where condors would be.
Yes.
Right? And the idea that we could go through, one agency or entity can go through a process of reintroducing a species that could then be hit by a turbine. But the mitigation for that is that these birds would be fit with, I heard it referred to at the meeting as backpacks, like condor backpacks, which puts a really cute picture in my mind.
Absolutely.
Right? But how are they gonna gotta get the bird, you gotta put the backpack on it or whatever it is. But they have radio waves on them. So when a bird who is wearing one of these devices gets close to the turbines, it'll shut the turbines down.
That's an interesting idea. How long does it take for a turbine to stop spinning, though?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like something that is, how wide or how long are one of those turbine blades?
I mean, they're huge. These are going to be 600-foot turbines. So, and 47 of them, I believe, is what they've decided on now. 47 600-foot turbines. And in the simulated photo that I saw in the environmental impact report, because another one of the impacts is in building roads. They have to build roads to actually get all these turbines to where they're going. And the blades are so large that they have to be on special extended trucks, that there are certain roads they can't take because they can't make those corners carrying these huge turbines up there.
Wow, so they're probably going to have to cut down even more trees in order to build those roads.
Yes.
To get turbines up there.
Totally. Well, and that's, one of the benefits of this project that is being touted is that it will create jobs. And I believe the estimate is 300 construction jobs, in the building of the project will be 300. So a lot of that I think is in roads, road building, stuff like that, building the paths that they're going to be on.
Non-permanent jobs.
Only 15 operations and maintenance jobs, as they call it. Yeah, right. And so, there's an awful lot that I don't know about how a wind turbine works, but it turns out they spontaneously combust sometimes.
What?
Yes, because of friction, because they're turning, so there's all that friction. So there has to be oil inside of them. And one estimate that I've seen, I'm not going to even tell you a number because I can't remember the number offhand, but they require barrels and barrels and barrels of oil for lubrication to help prevent them from bursting into flames. So, I mean, though technically the the electricity that they're making is not being derived from fossil fuels.
Yeah, it seems like there's an awful lot of petrochemicals that will go into the manufacturing and maintenance of these.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a good thing that they last forever.
And they don't. That's the thing, is they don't. And the estimated life of this project, which I don't even really know what that means, if that's before the turbines break down, if that's just how long this particular company, Terra-Gen, wants to run the project, but they estimate it to be at 30 years. So yeah, what happens after 30 years?
And how much energy is produced in that 30 years?
Right. Yeah.
How long does it take to build them?
And that is another good question.
How can I find any answers to this?
I mean, it's the good thing about this being such a controversial project is that I think there are a lot of people who are doing research about it, you know,
Right.
so you can look up a lot. I've done a bit of research myself just into the company, because
Yeah,
they
they seem like a
are,
small company.
they seem like a small company, right? But they are owned, like so many other companies, by a much larger holding company. This is Energy Capital Partners, which that's a fun one to do some research on. Just get on their website and start clicking around on projects and who they are. You know, it's definitely a pretty typical management team, like right on the front of their website. And you're just like, oh, look at all those white men in suits, you know? It's like the same, it just seems like business as usual, right? And they do, you can like click around and see the different projects that they work on. And they do a lot of opportunistic energy.
What does that mean?
I think that's code for fracking. There are definitely some coal mines that are in their portfolio. So yeah, I have that question. So how green is it if the money the profit that is made, because this is a for-profit endeavor, right? They're not doing this as
That makes
you know,
sense.
these are not philanthropists here to just provide green energy. They're doing it to turn a profit. Does that profit then go into dirty energy projects?
And do they operate all over the country, or is this a California-based company? Okay.
Yeah, definitely, they do.
So the profits from this could very well go into coal mining in, say, West Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that doesn't seem
Absolutely.
very green.
Doesn't seem very green at all. Or building pipelines, yeah, it's not very green at all. And I think that, yeah, so the 30-year project, they turn their profit, 30 years are up, then they just leave all those turbines up there? And then also like this pristine grassland and prairie where there are important plants, endangered species. It's a sacred site for the Wiyot people. Like, what happens to that place when the 30 years is up? Right? Do they just split? I mean, there's a really long history all over the world, but especially here in Humboldt County. You can just look around at the contaminated sites that we have that industry have left, right? And we're kind of left holding the bag as citizens because somebody's got to deal with that.
And is this land that is Wiyot land, what are they currently doing with it? Is it something that they own?
No, Rachel. This has been, and so this, my unpracticed white person tongue, I don't know that I'm can say the name of the place right. But Bear River Ridge, as white folk call it specifically, is a very important cultural site. And it is privately owned, most of it. I believe some of it is some agencies, like some might be county lands, but a lot of it is privately owned. It is a ranch that has been owned by one family for years. So I think that that's really like.
So they must stand to make quite a profit off of leasing this land to this company.
They must. And that's the thing that like really like sticks in me, like that's the main point. Like you can probably mitigate a lot of other things, but how do you mitigate profiting off of genocide, right? And that might sound like kind of a stretch, but you know, this is land that was stolen from people who were systematically slaughtered by the settlers so that they could have land. You know, just the idea that people can then profit off of that. And I know that the Wiyot tribe is very opposed to this project. And you know, and a lot of people within the community who are very opposed to it, and this is not just NIMBYism, you know, this is not like, oh, not in my backyard, which I think that there's a lot of that people are just like, oh, I don't want to see wind turbines, I don't want to hear it, whatever. Like, I don't agree with that. You could put them in my backyard if it was going to be ecologically responsible and culturally responsible. But then the big problem is like the location, this place. Why is it this place, this beautiful, pristine? I've never been up there, but I've talked to people who've been up there, and they say it is amazing, special. You can see so far, it is untouched. You know, like, why does it have to be there?
Well, they must. I hear that it is one of the best, windiest places in the country.
Yeah.
Doesn't that?
Yeah. Right. Totally. Well, and it's interesting to me until really thinking about this project, I never thought about wind as a resource, but it is. Like, this is a resource that is being extracted. And I've heard multiple people say, these are people whose scientific opinions I trust, and it does make sense to me that having wind turbines in an area changes the microclimate. And you think about how important microclimates are to this region. Like, that's why the redwoods exist, is because we have these microclimates with the fog, especially. So how will that change with wind turbines? And it just seems like, why this place? When we have like so many other places that are already kind of
Well, it does make sense too.
Like,
we've logged a lot of places. There have to be other hilly, elevated places that you would be able to place these on.
Yeah, right. Like, what are the alternatives? Like, I think that's a really important thing to think about, because this is an alternative power source, and we need to have an alternative power source, right? So what are the alternatives? The same thing in a different place, and I don't understand why. I'm sure that there was a lot that went into deciding on this particular place. Not only the wind, but the ease of getting the.
Do you think that part of it had something to do with it already being privately owned?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so the same project in a different place. I mean, solar, a lot of people are talking about solar, which is great.
Yeah, why isn't that something that companies are, I suppose this isn't a great place for solar,
right.
but on a smaller level.
Well, and again, what I've heard is that even if we all put solar panels on our homes, and we all put solar panels on every building, that's not the solution because of our energy needs. Now, the real question here too is, like, who's deciding what our energy needs are? If it's energy companies projecting what our energy needs are, I don't think that we need to take those. Like, they should not be dictating what our needs are, because their sole purpose is to turn a profit, which I think is another problem with this project. And another possible alternative is publicly owned utilities. Like, if the goal is to provide a service rather than to turn a profit, then that makes it a different project, right? Absolutely. And then if it is something that is publicly owned, we have the power to decide what that project is going to look like. And just, the more people who are involved in the decision-making process, the more a project actually reflects the greater good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that we also just need to really, like, get innovative in our personal lives and in the larger community. Like, we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And a lot of it, I think, is because the people who are, these things take money, right? And the people who are in control of the money, I don't know, like, things are working out for them. Changing the status quo is not necessarily important for them because they're making money. They're in power. Yeah, that part of my bangs is really weird. So I think you gotta.
Wonky thing.
I got a wonky thing. So just do whatever you gotta do.
And you don't blow dry. Right?
Oh no, I don't. I never blow dry. And and in light of all of this discussion, that is something that we can change too, right?
The energy consumption is outrageous.
Right.
And people don't even think about it. The amount of things that we keep plugged in all the time is.
My toaster has a light on it. Why does my toaster have a light on it? I unplug it all the time because it's annoying. But yeah, and how do we, so what I would really like to be, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't know how this would work out, but I know that there are engineers out there who could figure this out. Bicycle-powered homes, right? We could hook everything up to have bicycle power, or even on a slightly larger scale. Let's say we had a warehouse where there were a bunch of stationary bikes in it, that were all hooked up to power generation. And we could go and do our allotment, right? Like, instead of paying money for our energy, we could use our kinetic energy to pay for energy. And of course there would be exceptions for people who are not able to do that, right? We can work that out because it's going to be on a small scale. And we're not trying to turn a profit, we're trying to provide a service.
Right.
Yeah.
And even something that is small scale like that, just for individual communities, I mean, it really seems like it's about time that we really start thinking outside the box.
It is.
And stop letting corporations tell us what to do and what we need.
Right? Preach, sister, preach. Yes, that is exactly it. And
do you think that Terra-Gen researched the amount of energy that's used locally and thought that this would be something that would benefit us locally in the long term? Or do you think that it was more just finding a space that they thought they could afford to build and make them money?
You know what? I'm sure that there's a very complex equation that they do, right? That profit and loss and projecting what that profit and loss could be. And I don't think that our long-term needs factored into that at all.
Because,
is my assumption.
you know, let's get real. We use power. We use
absolutely.
power. We cannot do without it.
Right.
And there's so many people with health issues
Right.
that absolutely cannot do without it.
Yeah.
And cannot create their own energy by bicycle. We
Right.
need new sources of energy that are not going to start on fire.
Right, because they
Suddenly,
spontaneously combust, yes.
Or
Right.
or ruin our environment. But we
Yeah.
we need to figure something else out for the people.
Like 20 years ago.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And how many are currently are there places that have publicly owned utilities? Like, is that a thing that exists?
Absolutely, yeah. There are public utility districts. There's actually one in Sacramento. And so it's voted in by the public. We decide, you know, and we're the people we put the members on the board. We can hold them accountable. There are public meetings. So it's different. And it's, you know, obviously, like, there's a lot of anger right now, justified anger at PG&E because their motive to turn a profit led to people dying, right? So obviously corporations they don't have our best interest in mind.
Gosh, so
So we
how
gotta
do we
change
even
it.
begin something like this? Like, is this something that Eureka could Eureka start their own small grid or something like that? Like, how do we?
Right.
How do
In
we get
theory,
something like
in
this?
theory, they can. And actually the Board of Supervisors they have sent a letter in support of looking at restructuring Pacific Gas and Electric as public utility districts. So I think right now there's a lot of movement in that way. And so it can happen. You gotta talk to Redwood Coast Energy Agency, you gotta talk to the Board of Supervisors, you know. But first, right, before any of this happens, there's going to be a public meeting because the Board of Supervisors has to decide whether or not to approve the permits for this Terra-Gen project.